It is time for the Silver Tempest pre-release, which means we have to make some early predictions about how this set is going to change our meta. Hey, Nick from 9card TCG, and today I'm going to be making a tier list for the Silver Tempest meta. These are, of course, predictions, and I want to make just two quick comments before we get started. One, it doesn't matter what I say. If you like a deck on this list and you want to play it, have fun, enjoy the game how you want, and this, of course, is just my opinion. Please don't take this super seriously. All the decks that we're going to be talking about are playable. They're all pretty good decks in their own right. It's just how they handle each other, or which ones of like good playable decks are the best of the group. So that's really all this is. But you know, we're just doing this for fun. If you haven't already, do me a favor, hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. All that kind of stuff tells YouTube this is a good channel and other people should watch it. I do think it'll be interesting to see if future Nick, when I edit this, decides to show what I predicted Lost Origin before it was released as. If future Nick does put it into the video for you, he'll put it in right here. Now, we're going to head over to Tier Maker and we'll make a tier list, because that's what we're doing. Here we are, Tier Maker. We're just going to go in the order that the cards are. We're not going to do anything crazy. And we're going to start off with Serperior. Serperior is an interesting deck. I do think it's going to fall into Tier 2 ultimately. It's not a bad deck by any means. It's, you know, it's a tank deck, so you pair this with something like Cheryl's and Gardenias to power up this Serperior. And it has a really interesting move where when you attack, you can move energies from any of your Pokemon to any of your other Pokemon. So the idea is kind of, you have two Serperior VStars, one in the active, one on the bench. You attack with the active, move all those energies to the bench. Your opponent then hits into the active Serperior. You Cheryl it, retreat, because Serperior VStar has free retreat, into the bench Serperior that now has all the energies on it. It's fresh. You hit into the Pokemon. Your opponent, you just kind of repeat that process. You compare this with like the camo poncho and shopping mall, so you can put the camo poncho onto your benched Serperior. This way your opponent can't boss it up, and then when you go into the active, you use the shopping court, or like the shopping mall stadium, to pull that camo poncho off the now active and bench it onto the new benched one, and you just keep repeating that cycle so your opponent can never boss the one with the energies on their turn. So not a bad deck, just, you know, a little interesting. Alolan Vulpix VStar, I think on its own, like as a deck, not very good. Path to the Peak turns off abilities, which means Pokemon V-Stars or V-Maxes, whatever that have abilities, can still hit the Alolan Vulpix if Path is in play. Otherwise, it's not a bad attack. Its attack is a shred attack, which is kind of cool, and it does have a V-Star power that can hit for free. It's just super squishy. I'm just not, on its own, I'm not a big fan. If you throw maybe a 1/1 of these into like a Palkia Kyurem type thing, then yeah, now you got a shred attack in Palkia. You got like a pretty good V-Star power that can hit for free if you really need to. And if Path is not in play, and your opponent has Pokemon V with abilities, then it can't be hit, which is, you know, not a bad thing. Just not a big fan of it on its own. Regieleki is probably the end of Tier 2. Personally, I want you to play Regieleki. This is not meta manipulation whatsoever. I just think you would enjoy Regieleki, and then you and I play at a tournament. It'll be a good time. Don't worry about why. Regieleki has an interesting ability where your basic lightning Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active, but it's restricted to basic. So aside from like Raikou and Vikavolt, there's not a ton of lightning or basic lightning Pokemon that are prevalent or even really worth playing. So I really don't know who you're boosting. You're not even boosting yourself with it. But you know, it's okay. It's fine. It's decent enough. Regidrago, on the other hand, Regidrago VStar, I do think is a very interesting type of Pokemon. this is going to be somewhat, it's not exactly, somewhat similar to the Mewtwo Mew GX, the tag team, in the sense that you can use one of your Dragon-type Pokemon's attacks that are in the discard as Regidrago VStar's attack. Not bad. It does have an awkward attack cost of double grass and fire, so you can very easily, like Gardenia's 2 grass and attach a fire energy for turn. You can't magma base into it because it is not a fire type, so that's a little bit unfortunate. So, but once you get the energies onto this thing, you have access to Goodra's rolling iron attack, so you actually take 80 less damage. You have access to Lost Impact, which is just an enormous attack. You have access to Gmax Pulverization, which is also a pretty strong attack and deals shred damage. You have access to a lot of really good attacks that dragons have, and you don't have to worry about all the different energies: water, metal, fighting, grass, fire. You just have to have the grass and fire energies to power up the Regidrago, and then get the other Pokemon into your discard, and then you can start attacking for whatever it is you need to do. So it's kind of versatile. I don't think it's going to be as good as people are saying it's going to be, but I do think it'll be pretty good. Lugia is easy tier 1. Lugia is easily tier 1, and if you've looked at any results from Japan with Lugia eligible or like legal to use, it's the Lugia show at the moment, and I'm super excited for it. I have a Lugia VStar deck built already. Of course, it's using proxies because at the time of recording, Silver Tempest is in the pre-release stage, and I'm not paying those prices for a Lugia VStar. It's just not happening. But incredible deck. You get the Arceus into the discard. You use Assemble Star to put those Arceus into the bench, and then you could search your deck for 4 special energies and attach them to your Pokemon. Incredible. Be on the lookout for Lugia. Ho-Oh, on the other hand, I don't know if this is going to be like end of tier 2, I'm going to put it tier 3. Just not a fan. You need a ton of energies, different energies in play, or to really do a lot of damage with Ho-Oh. I'm just not really convinced or sold on it at the moment. I'm also not a fan of this music, so I'm going to change it. Arceus Inteleon, I think, stays in the tier 2 range. You do have a ton of tools that you can use with Arceus Inteleon. You can pair it with any Pokemon, or you can just keep it as Arceus Inteleon on its own. I do think it's tier 2. It's going to be similar to like the Serperior style of like tank damage, try to reduce the amount. Sharon's, instead of using Cheryl, you're going to use Sharon's Care. You're going to use Radiant Greninja or Radiant Gardevoir to tank a little extra damage. You're going to have big charms on there. Like, there's things you can do to like really increase the amount of damage that something like an Arceus would take, but it just, between things like Giratina's and Goodras, it's just like kind of hard to really use something like an Arceus. Goodra, Giratina, and Kyurem all hit for a massive amount of damage, and Goodra doesn't hit for a massive amount of damage, but what it does do is out-tanks you, because it has healing and damage reduction, whereas you just kind of have some healing and that's your supporter for the turn, so it just gets outclassed by Goodra, honestly. You're a little bit more consistent than Goodra, sure, but when the deck's rolling, and I mean that as a pun, it's going to be really, really difficult for you to beat. So Arceus Inteleon falls into tier 2, and I'm going to kind of put most Arceus, maybe this falls like the end of tier 1. Arceus Giratina is not bad. Arceus with Espeon Vmax is also not bad by any means, so, you know, there's some use for Arceus at the moment. It's just not as good as it used to be. You can make the argument that like all Arceus decks are tier 2, but I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and put it in tier 1.5. Lost Box with Greninja is tier 2. I don't think the Greninja on its own is enough to really save it. You kind of need a lot. There's a lot of decks that are running Mana Feed, kind of hard to deal with. However, Lost Zone with Charizard is very, very good. I think like with the Comfey, Sableye, Charizard, I mean, that deck won, was it Salt Lake City? The deck Tord played, I think it was Salt Lake City, or it might have been Peoria. Either way, the point is, Sablezard with Comfey Lost Zone Engine is very, very good. It's still going to be played, and there's no reason why it wouldn't be. Blissey, I think kind of falls into the 1.5. I don't think it's quite tier 1 just yet. It did come in second in what regional did we just have? I'm blanking on the regional, but it did just come in second. It lost to Mew. I'm not really sure which one I prefer, but you know, play, I guess, whatever, man. Play Blissey. It's all right. I can kind of deal with that. And it's an interesting deck because it's another type of heal tank wall. You have the wall install aspect with something like Miltank, and then you have the heal tank options with something like Blissey, Cape of Toughness. Now it's a 300 HP Pokemon that just, you know, it's going to get a little bit better with something like V-Guard Energy, throw a Radiant Gardevoir down, you're taking 50 less damage. That's really good. And on top of it being a 2-prizer 350 health, 300 health Pokemon, so you essentially have to do 350 damage to one-shot this thing. That's really annoying. And then all the Hyper Potions, and it just builds and builds attacks. So if you're not able to one-shot it, it's going to keep hitting you harder and harder and harder, while also maintaining a lot of heal. And then it has the Miltanks for when you do knock that thing out, now you have to deal with a Miltank or two, and it can be kind of annoying. So I definitely see how it can win. I'm not a fan. We have another tier 1 deck in the form of Giratina Comfey. The Lost Zone Giratina is incredible. It's such a good deck between Star Requiem, Lost Impact, even the Lost, like the Abyss Seeking attack on the V to help you accelerate those Lost Zone cards in the early game if you have to. You have Shred on the Giratina V. There's just a lot of options. Cramorant, Sableye. You can throw a Radiant Greninja in there, Radiant Charizard. Like you have, probably not Charizard, but you have a ton of options as to what you want to do. And you get to do it with Giratina. It's such a powerful deck. You can surprise people with Thornton plays and just turn a Comfey into a Giratina V and then evolve into a V-Star out of nowhere. It's really scary. I hate going against it because I do kind of like playing Arceus Goodra, and it's a tough matchup. Speaking of tough matchups for someone like me, I do think Goodra Comfey falls into tier 1.5. It's not quite as good as the Arceus Goodra build. If this was Arceus Goodra, do we gotta move this? I think we moved this around a little bit. Arceus Goodra is really good. I think it did win a regionals. I think that's what won Salt Lake City, and then Tord won Peoria. So cool. Goodra Lost Zone, really good. It just doesn't have something. There's a possibility for Fantina plays. There's the possibility for Sableye plays, which is pretty cool. You could go Greninja since you already have the water energies in there. There's a lot of things you can do with this kind of deck. It's just something about it doesn't feel as good as Lost Zone Giratina, or even Lost Zone Arceus. Being able to use Arceus to power up 2 Goodras, or basically get 2 Goodras, just an attachment or a Melanie attach away from attacking, and now you have to deal with 2 Goodra V-Stars, can be really, really annoying. A lot of times with the Lost Zone version, you get 1 Goodra, if you're lucky 2, and then it's kind of, getting to that 1 Goodra maybe might not be so bad. So that's kind of my big gripe with the Lost Zone version. Maybe I just haven't played it properly. Maybe I haven't seen other people play it properly. But I do think it pales in comparison a little bit to the Arceus Goodra. Mew is still tier 1. I mean, for sure, getting the Forest Sealed Tablet or the Forest Seal Stone, where you can just use this ability. It's a tool card you attach to a Pokemon V, and then you can use that ability to search your deck for any card you want. It's basically half a Starburst, but it works with Path to the Peak. So Path to the Peak can be in play, and you can still use this ability on the tool card, because Path to the Peak turns off Pokemon abilities, and this technically isn't an ability on a Pokemon, it's on a tool card, and so it doesn't get turned off by Path. I think it's stupid, and I'm not a big fan, but it makes Mew a lot better. You gotta have something. I mean, you can't even really deal with it because they just if they're like path locked and they top deck it, they just attach it to a Genesect V. So now Tool Jammer doesn't work. They're not going to play it before they need it, because then you could just scrapper it or Lost Vacuum it away. So they're not going to do that. So you got to hang on to this tool card until you need to use it. And you just pop the ability, attach it to a Genesect on the bench. There you go. It's super, super annoying. Not a fan. Mew is going to stay very good. It did just win a regional. So get those Drapions in your decks. Palkia Inteleon, I do think, remains the best deck in the game. That's why it's reserved in S. It's just super, super strong, super consistent. Yes, it does have a little bit of a tendency to brick from time to time, but you know what? It makes up for it in a best of 3 scenario. It's just, it does everything. Super consistent, super powerful, punishes you for playing Pokemon, and if you don't play Pokemon, well, then they're just gonna knock things out anyway. They have Greninja, they have Inteleon. It's so much to deal with, and I hate playing against it, but, you know, so it makes it the best deck. So, those lightning types, this Regieleki Vmax might not be as bad as we think it will be. Speaking of more Palkia decks, I do think Palkia Kyurem is kind of end of tier 1. It has all the benefits of Palkia VStar in the form of Subspace Swell, which is an incredible attack, and you have a great VStar power that accelerates the energies from the discard, so you can, you know, discard one for Greninja, get some energy into the discard, and then draw, and then you can put energies in the discard, you know, power up, say, a Kyurem that needs to knock out a Blissey in one hit, needs to knock out an Arceus in one hit, you need to knock out a Goodra. Like, you can do as much damage as you need to with Kyurem. Not as consistent as the Inteleon version, but you trade off being able to be as consistent for the possibility of doing huge damage, and also being a 330 health Vmax that accelerates energies as well is really, really good. So now you have Melanie to accelerate, you have the Palkia to accelerate, and you have the Kyurem to accelerate. There's so much energy flowing in this deck, it's ridiculous. Regigigas, I think, is the best deck in tier 1.5. When it gets going, it's very, very good. I think it was it Salt Lake City where half of the decks in top 8 were Regis. That can't be ignored. Like, the deck is really, really good. Online, gift energy isn't working. There's a bug, so you can't use it. So, okay, you might not, if you're like, but Nick, I don't see it doing well in Limitless tournaments. I never see it pop up in Limitless. That's the reason people aren't playing it, because gift energy, there's a bug. It's a little annoying. I do think Regis is very, very good the games it gets going. And yeah, it's just, Regis is pretty good. As much as everyone, and myself included, kind of expected it to be a meme deck, I do think it stays really good in this format. Rapid Strike Urshifu, I think, kind of falls to the end of tier 1.5. I know some people are not a big fan of Rapid Strike Urshifu, but we have the Earthen Sealed Stone, which is the other tablet that gives the V-Star power. So you attach this tablet to a Pokemon V, and then for 3 colorless energies, you place damage counters on all of your opponent's Pokemon until they have, or your opponent's Pokemon V, until they have 100 health remaining. Gmax Rapid Flow does 120 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. So all you have to do is now get 3 energies, use Star Gravity, which is the attack, or Gravity Star, which is the attack on the tablet. It bypasses Manaphy because you're placing damage counters, and then the following turn, boss up in the Manaphy, cancel and clone, Gmax Rapid Flow, because it already costs 3 energies to use the Gravity Star attack, so you have 3 energies, and now you can just Rapid Flow your opponent's Pokemon away, and there you go. So you can crush boards, you can take 4 to 6 prizes in a turn. It's very, very powerful. If you Gale Thrust the Crobat, Gale Thrust, or, something, take 2 prizes, and then you Rapid Flow 2 other V-Stars, that's the game. You can win in 3 attacks. One of the things that makes this so exciting for me is that I had learned that the tool, the Forest Sealed Stone, I still can't say that for some reason, Forest Sealed Stone's Gravity Star attack is reduced by the abilities of Galarian Zapdos V and Drapion V. So in the case of Galarian Zapdos, it says for each of your opponent's Pokemon V in play, its attacks cost 1 colorless less. So if your opponent has 3 Pokemon V in play, you attach this tool to a Galarian Zapdos, and now it gets to use the tool for free, which is really cool because now you don't have to sacrifice or, let an Urshifu get damaged. You can use it for free while you power up and build up Urshifu on the bench. Same thing with Drapion. Now you have 2 Drapions in your Urshifu decks to deal with Mew. Those Drapions in other matchups are now not useless cards. You can sacrifice a Drapion because if you're playing something like Palkia Inteleon, they have a couple of Sables in play, those Rapid Strike Sables, well now you get to attack for free, or at the very least, you just attach an energy. If they have 2 in play, you attach 1 energy, and there you go, you get a Water Energy, attach it, you can use Star Gravity, reduce all your opponent's Pokemon V down to 100, they knock it out, and then you bring up that Urshifu, Melanie, attach Rapid Strike Energy, Rapid Flow, boom. That's kind of... I'm a big fan of Rapid Strike Urshifu with this sealed stone tablet. Zoroark, oh god, I don't like Zoroark. Not a fan. I think in the form, it pains me to say it. Zoroark is pretty good, I think, going forward, because look at the top decks, right? So many of the top decks are 2 and 3 prizes, which is where Zoroark excels. It's when we start to deal with all of these, Sablezard decks and the, Comfey Lost Zone decks and the Regis, where those become really, really popular, that Zoroark kind of falters a little bit. But I expect to see a pretty good amount of Lugia, Palkia, Mew, Giratinas. So it doesn't really have a great matchup to Giratina, but yeah, it's one of those things that given the right meta, it's very, very good. Given the wrong meta, it can be really bad. So, God, I just don't like Zoroark. I just don't. It's never been good to me. It's never felt very good. I always feel like I'm struggling to find my combos. I always not getting into it right now. Eternantus is Eternantus. I think I'll give it tier 2. I'll give it tier 2 because so many of these Pokemon are V stars and they have 270, 280 health. You can very easily, you do 270 damage with the full bench of Dark type Pokemon. You get a Choice Belt on there. Now you're hitting for 300. You're taking some pretty easy knockouts on every single V star. V-Star, 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 not Goodra. You're knocking out the Serperiors. There are things like Big Charms and Radiant Gardevoirs that do make it really annoying. You have things like Path to the Peak that can be really annoying because you're pretty reliant on your Dread End ability. You're really reliant on Crobats to draw you cards. But you do have the Galarian Weasel with Neutralizing Gas, so you can kind of at least stall and put some chip damage onto maybe some bigger Pokemon like an Urshifu, like a Goodra, like a Kyurem, and you can whittle them down so that when you do hit with your Dread End, Eternal Zone is the ability, Dread End is the attack. When you hit with Dread End, now you've maybe poisoned them long enough where you're able to take a 1-shot instead of having to take a 2-shot, because man, you do not want a 2-shot, a 2-prize Pokemon, and they're going to be 2-shotting to get 3 prizes. That does not feel very good. So, something to keep in mind. I'm just not a huge... I mean, Palkia crushes you, right? Like, you have 8 Pokemon in play, and they have 5 on the bench. That's a lot of damage that Palkia is going to be doing. So, something to keep in mind. If you have really... Same thing with Kyurem. Kyurem can do a massive amount of damage. Yeah, sure, you might be able to handle Mew a little bit. But still, they have a lot of 2 prizes, but they don't even have to hit into your Eternatus. They're going to be able to hit into your Crobats very, very easily. Just boss KO. If they set up faster than you, which Mew is going to set up pretty quickly, it can be a tough matchup, even though you do have the type advantage. But, something to keep in mind. That's the tier list. Yeah, I think we'll be I think we'll be pretty accurate. Maybe we see Lugia drop down a little bit if it's not as consistent as we kind of want it to be. Maybe we see something like Regidrago and pop up a little bit because maybe it's more consistent than I'm giving it credit for. But I think this is pretty decent. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And that's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, found it informative, like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff. And I will see you next time.